The candles were still burning when the lie arrived. One of them had melted into a crooked mess, dripping wax down the side of the wine bottle like tears nobody wanted to admit they were shedding. I stared at it for a while, too long probably, because I didn't know where else to look. Certainly not at the dinner. Not at the untouched plate across from me. Not at the phone that kept lighting up face down. 9:13 p.m. Still nothing from her. Not even a running late. An hour ago, she texted, "I just want to be alone tonight. Hope you understand." I had typed out a dozen responses. Deleted each one. Eventually, I just wrote back, "Sure. Take all the time you need." And that was it. That was the last thing I said before everything inside me started to rot quietly. I blew out the candles one by one. Each time, the room got darker. But it wasn't until I put the last flame out that I noticed the silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that hugs you like a blanket. No, this one sat heavy, like someone left a running engine in the room, humming low with unspoken things. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when the food went cold. Not when her empty chair stared at me like it pitied me. Not even when I washed the dishes she never used. But something cracked when I opened the bedroom closet later that night. It was subtle. A hanger slightly crooked. A sweatshirt I hadn't seen before. Not mine. Not hers. Too large. Unfamiliar. And then, tucked into the side of her laundry basket, beneath her folded gym leggings and perfume-scented hoodies, a receipt. Gas station. 2 waters, a pack of gum, and a pair of sunglasses. Timestamp. 8:04 p.m. Location? Not anywhere near home. I stood there gripping that flimsy little paper like it was a piece of her soul. That's when I noticed her suitcase wasn't in the closet. She hadn't gone out for air. Or to be alone. She packed. Not enough for a real trip, but enough for a night. And suddenly, I wasn't alone in my apartment. I was surrounded by ghosts. Ghosts of every moment I had overlooked. Every late night. Every weird excuse. Every shift in her laugh when she was texting someone else and trying not to smile too hard. I didn't call her. I didn't beg. I didn't even get angry. I just sat back down on the couch and stared at the wall for hours. At 2:16 a.m., she sent another text. "I'll probably stay at Molly's tonight. Don't wait up. Molly lives in Boston. We live in Vermont." And I knew, right then, she wasn't alone tonight at all. She just wanted to be alone from me. So the next morning, I gave her what she asked for. Not temporarily. Not just for the night. But for good. And not in the way she ever expected. The coffee shop on the corner opens at 6 a.m., but I was already parked across the street by 5:40, sitting in my car, chewing the inside of my cheek raw. I hadn't planned it. None of this was some grand scheme. I just woke up after 2 hours of sleep, looked at her empty pillow, and couldn't stay in that apartment for another second. I had no solid proof. Only a gut full of acid and a laundry basket full of signs I hadn't wanted to see until last night. Her text was still on my phone. I reread it 7 times while waiting in the car, like some part of me still hoped I'd misread it. "I'll probably stay at Molly's tonight. Don't wait up." It sounded so casual, so polished, like she'd rehearsed it, like she knew I wouldn't question it anymore. But the thing is, I'd met Molly. Once. And even then, Macy made sure it was brief, like she was scared we might accidentally compare stories. So that morning, something in me uncoiled. Not anger. Just this, empty sort of focus. I drove to the cafe I knew Brandon worked near. I remembered it because she once let it slip he liked their cold brew, and for some reason, that detail stuck in my brain like a splinter. I didn't expect to see anything. Honestly, I don't even know what I was looking for. But then, just after 7 a.m., there she was. Not alone. She came walking down the sidewalk in the same jeans from the night before, wearing that green jacket I thought she'd donated months ago. Her hair was tied differently, messier, looser, like she didn't care, like she didn't expect to see anyone who mattered. He was next to her. Brandon. I didn't even know his last name, but I recognized him from her phone screen. Medium height. Lean. Wearing one of those smug, half-formed beards that made him look like a guy who'd explain why vinyl is superior while vaping on your porch. He had his hand on her back. It wasn't sexual. Not openly. But it wasn't nothing either. It was too familiar. Too relaxed. Like this wasn't new. Like it had been going on for a while. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat in that car, one hand gripping the steering wheel and the other clenched around my phone like it could anchor me to something real. They got coffee. They sat inside. She laughed at something he said, the kind of laugh that crinkled her eyes, her real laugh. The one she hadn't used around me in months. And I watched them like I was watching a rerun of someone else's happiness. I don't know how long I stayed. Eventually, they left. Walked side by side down the street, turning a corner like they were just starting their day, just like any other couple. Like I never existed. I went home, but not inside. I couldn't. I sat on the stairwell outside our building for nearly an hour, just staring at the front door, wondering how many times she'd walked through it carrying someone else's scent, someone else's smile. My hands were shaking. My throat was dry. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I started packing. Not her stuff. Mine. I wasn't angry. Not even numb. I just folded my clothes quietly, one at a time, like I was cleaning up after someone who died. I found her drawer where she kept souvenirs from our trips, movie stubs, keychains, a pressed flower from a hike. I left it untouched. I figured she'd probably toss it all anyway. By the time she got home later that night, around 9 p.m., I was sitting at the dining table, bags by the door, and one final note in my hand. She walked in, paused, then looked at the bags. Her face didn't shift much. Not guilt, not confusion, but fear? No, it was worse than that. It was irritation. Warren, she sighed, can we not do this tonight? I stood up slowly, holding the note out. She didn't take it. So I placed it on the table between us, looked her dead in the eye, and whispered, you got what you wanted. You're alone. Then I walked out. Didn't slam the door. Didn't say goodbye. Just disappeared from the life she'd already replaced me in. But I wasn't done. Because what happened after that, what I learned next, made everything I'd seen look like the opening act to something much, much darker. I didn't go far. Not that night. I just drove aimlessly until the city lights faded behind me, and I ended up at a rundown roadside motel on Route 5 with flickering neon letters and a parking lot that smelled like motor oil and old cigarettes. I paid cash. Room 104. It smelled like mildew and television static. The carpet was sticky in places I didn't want to think about. But I didn't care. I sat on the edge of the bed with my bags at my feet and stared at the ceiling for hours. No music. No scrolling. Just silence and a mind playing the same three memories on repeat. The way she smiled at him, the softness in her voice when she lied to me, and the look she gave me when I handed her that note, like I was the one ruining something. Around 2 a.m., I finally opened my laptop. Not to watch a movie or distract myself. I opened it because of a thought I couldn't shake. Brandon wasn't the first guy she'd gotten close to. There had been another. Not long ago. Someone from work. I only remembered because I once heard her on the phone, whispering in the kitchen, saying things like, no, he's asleep, and we can't talk like this anymore. When I asked her about it, she told me it was just her cousin. Some family drama. She even laughed at me for being paranoid, said, you're sweet when you worry too much. Back then, I believed her. Now, I wasn't so sure. I dug into our shared iCloud account, something we'd set up for calendars syncing back when we thought we'd get married someday. I'm not proud of it, okay? But I had to know. Had to see if the Brandon thing was new, or just the latest in a pattern I was too blind to notice. There were old backups, text threads, photos, even voice memos she must have recorded and forgotten about. And then I found it. A video. Just 32 seconds long. The thumbnail was her, sitting on a bed I didn't recognize, wearing a shirt that definitely wasn't mine, her hair in a braid she never wore for me. I didn't want to open it. I really didn't. But I did. The audio hit me first, her laughing. Playful. Then a man's voice. You really think he suspects anything? She said, please. Warren still thinks I'm at yoga. Then she looked right into the camera and winked. I paused the video. I wanted to smash the laptop against the wall. Instead, I closed it gently and stared at my reflection in the black screen. My own eyes didn't even look familiar anymore. This wasn't just one mistake. This was architecture. A web. A system of lies built slowly, carefully, while I was folding laundry and cooking her stupid turkey bacon and believing she was just tired. I felt like I'd been erased. And then came the part one wasn't prepared for. I opened the shared calendar, something we hadn't used in over a year. Most of it was blank. But there was a recurring event, every Thursday night for the past 4 months. The title? Self-Care Night. It was cute, innocent-looking, but each entry had a location attached. And it wasn't a spa. It was a residential address, one I didn't recognize. So I searched it. And suddenly, I wasn't breathing. It was a townhouse, registered under a name I'd never seen. Until I checked my email inbox, some promotional junk from a moving company I never used. They confirmed a delivery to that address 6 weeks ago. The order name? Macy Nolan. My Macy. She'd rented a separate place, a second home, without telling me. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour, maybe more. Just staring at that address on the screen and realizing she hadn't just cheated. She had built an entirely separate life, one where I didn't exist. And all I could think, over and over, was that I'd set the table for her. Lit candles, cooked dinner, told her I loved her before she left that night, and she was never planning to come back. I didn't sleep, not even for a minute. By the time the sun started bleeding through the grimy motel curtains, my eyes felt like sandpaper and my thoughts were melting together in strange, bitter loops. I couldn't stop picturing her smiling in that video, that little wink, that casual cruelty. It played in my head over and over, like she had aimed it directly at the future moment I'd find it, as if mocking me in advance. I waited until mid-morning. I told myself I'd wait until noon, that it was smarter to give it time, to cool off, to plan something measured and rational. But my body moved before my brain could finish convincing me of anything reasonable. I drove straight to the townhouse. It was about 20 minutes outside the city. Quiet street. A line of cookie-cutter homes that all looked like they'd been copy-pasted out of a real estate brochure. Trimmed bushes, clean driveways, vinyl siding that hadn't been weathered yet. Hers was the third one on the right, with 2 empty wine bottles lying in the recycling bin out front and a small chalkboard by the door that read, "Welcome home, M," in girly, looping handwriting. I didn't knock. I stood on the sidewalk across the street, staring, trying to make sense of what I was even doing. I hadn't told anyone. Not my brother. Not my boss. Not my best friend from college who always warned me she was too shiny to trust. I hadn't told a soul, because I still hadn't accepted it was real. But it was. I watched for almost an hour. Cars passed. A woman walked her dog. A delivery van dropped off a package. But no one came in or out of her door. The blinds were closed. The porch light was still on, even in daylight, like whoever lived there hadn't realized morning had arrived or didn't care. Eventually, I approached. I told myself I'd just knock. Nothing more. Just knock and see what happened. But when I got close to the door, I noticed it wasn't fully shut. The latch hadn't caught. I swear I stood there for a full minute, hand frozen in the air, heart pounding in my throat like a warning drum. And then I pushed. The door creaked open. The first thing that hit me was the scent, vanilla candles and perfume I didn't recognize. The second thing was the music, soft, low jazz playing from a speaker in the kitchen. The third was the coat on the hook by the door, Brandon's. I knew it because he wore it the morning I saw them together. I should have turned around. I didn't. I stepped inside. It was clean, lived in, comfortable. The furniture wasn't ours. The framed pictures weren't of us. There were 2 mugs on the counter, both half full. One lipstick stained, one not. A sweatshirt lay folded on the couch, and a pair of men's running shoes were neatly placed near the patio door. I moved down the hallway. There were photos pinned up, her at a lake, her holding a drink on some rooftop, her laughing in a hammock with Brandon holding her waist. No trace of me. Not a single one. I didn't belong here. I never had. I was about to leave when something caught my eye in the bedroom. A notepad. It sat on the desk by the window, underneath a jar of pins and a single dried rose in a mason jar. I picked it up. The top page read like a checklist. Cancel Warren's gym membership. Move savings to new account. Lawyer appointment. Friday at 2. Tell mom after confirmation. Do not forget. Use soft tone. I want peace. Angle. My knees buckled. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just secrets. It was a plan. A blueprint to erase me with as little friction as possible. Like I was a subscription service she forgot to cancel months ago. I backed out of the house, shaking, sick to my stomach, the taste of betrayal heavy on my tongue. I didn't even close the door behind me. I couldn't. I stumbled back to my car, started the engine, and just sat there, hands trembling on the wheel. I had no idea what to do next, but I knew I couldn't go back to pretending this was something it wasn't. She had built an entire new life, behind my back, with another man, inside a home I didn't even know existed. And now she was preparing to dismantle the rest of our life methodically, quietly, like she was scraping gum off her shoe. But I wasn't gum, and I wasn't going to be erased that easily. I didn't go back to the motel. I couldn't sit in that room another night, marinating in the sour air and my own humiliation. Instead, I drove to the far side of town and parked at an old lookout we used to go to when we first started dating, back when things still felt real. It was a stupid move, sentimental and dramatic, But I needed a place where I could remember what loving her used to feel like before it turned into this twisted, silent betrayal. The view wasn't even that impressive, just a patch of trees, some scattered rooftops, and a lot of empty space. But I sat there until my phone battery died, just thinking. Not planning. Not crying. Just thinking. I tried to tally it all up. How many lies it took to build that townhouse, how many nights she left with her hair tied in a way she knew I found sexy, only to go warm someone else's bed. And then I thought about that note on her desk. Use soft tone. I want peace angle. It was like she was preparing a speech for a client, or a eulogy for someone she barely remembered. Somewhere in that haze of grief and rage and numbness, something shifted in me. I realized I was holding on to the wrong thing. I had been obsessed with catching her, proving she was lying, trying to corner her with truth, but she already knew what she was doing. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't waiting to be exposed. She had already written the end of our story and was now just editing it for smoother delivery. And if that was true, then I had a very narrow window before she made her final move. So I went back home, not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed to get ahead of her. If she was talking to a lawyer, if she was moving money, if she was organizing her exit, then I needed to stop pretending I was the one being abandoned and start preparing for the reality. I was being erased. When I walked in, the apartment was dark except for the glow of her phone on the counter, buzzing. She was in the shower. I could hear the water running. The scent of eucalyptus shampoo filled the hallway like nothing had happened, like she was just unwinding after another normal day. I didn't hesitate. I went straight to my desk, pulled out my laptop, and started logging into every shared account we had: banking, utilities, insurance, phone plan. I had access to all of it. She never bothered to change the passwords. I didn't touch anything yet. I just gathered screenshots, statements, activity logs. Then I opened a private email I hadn't used in years and backed it all up. I found emails from a realtor she'd been speaking with. One of them mentioned a walkthrough scheduled once the divorce is in motion. I found 3 bank transfers to a personal account I didn't recognize, each small enough not to trip a flag, but large enough to be intentional. There were deleted texts in her backup history too, most of them with Brandon. Some casual. Some gross. Some disturbing in how cold they were. There was one that gutted me. From 2 weeks ago. He had texted, "He won't just let you walk away with half, will he?" She replied, "He's soft. He'll fold if I spin it right." That was it. That was the exact moment I stopped mourning and started preparing. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse or plead or fall apart. I just copied everything I needed and quietly started locking things down. I transferred my personal savings to a secure account. I changed my direct deposit information at work. I scheduled a meeting with a divorce attorney a friend once recommended, back when things were still good and we used to joke about needing a prenup because of how much she loved shopping. And when she finally stepped out of the bathroom, hair damp, robe tied loosely, and gave me that fake little tired smile, I smiled back. Because I knew. I knew she had no idea what I'd seen. No idea what I'd read. No idea that the man she thought was too soft, too passive, too afraid to push back, was already unraveling the threads of her plan, silently, carefully, like a surgeon peeling back skin. She sat on the couch and asked if I wanted to watch something together. I told her I was too tired, that I might take a trip soon. "Some time to think," I said. She nodded, barely paying attention, already thumbing through her phone. I went to bed early, not because I wanted rest, but because I needed to get away from the sound of her pretending. I stared at the ceiling and rehearsed the conversation I'd have with my lawyer the next day. How I'd show him the paper trail, the premeditation, the hidden assets, how I'd fight for every penny she didn't expect me to protect. But what I didn't expect, what none of this prepared me for, was what happened when I showed up at her townhouse again 2 days later. Because someone else opened the door. And it wasn't Brandon. It had been exactly 47 hours since I first stepped foot into the townhouse, her other life, and I couldn't get the image out of my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the chalkboard by the door, that mocking little welcome home. I saw the notepad on her desk, each line written with cold precision, like she was trying to dismantle me piece by piece without making a mess. And now that I had copies of everything, screenshots, audio backups, the money trail, I felt like I was sitting on a time bomb, only I wasn't the one who'd planted it. I was just deciding when to let it blow. I had only told one person, my cousin Eli. He's not someone I usually go to for emotional stuff. He's rough around the edges, kind of the opposite of me, but when I sent him the message, all I said was, I need someone with a working flashlight and a good grip on reality. He showed up at the cafe where we used to meet up for board games, bought me a coffee without asking, and just let me talk. When I told him everything, every detail about the townhouse, Brandon, the lawyer appointments, the soft-tone script, he didn't say much. Just nodded, jaw clenched. Then, in that deep, gravelly voice of his, he said, "You don't burn a bridge like that without someone waiting on the other side." That line stuck with me, because Brandon didn't seem smart enough or invested enough to be the architect behind everything I found. His texts were immature, reactive. He wasn't the planner. Macy was. But something still didn't add up. Like there was a third shadow I hadn't noticed lurking behind the other two. A hand I hadn't seen pulling at strings. That was why I went back. 2 days later, I parked near the townhouse again. But this time, I didn't bring anything. No camera, no backup phone, no plans. Just a feeling in my gut that something else was going on, something that hadn't surfaced yet. I waited until mid-afternoon. The neighborhood was quiet, just the distant buzz of a lawnmower and the occasional car gliding by. Her car wasn't in the driveway. Neither was Brandon's, if he even had one. That detail suddenly felt suspiciously vague. I walked up the steps and rang the bell. No answer. I waited. Knocked lightly, then harder. Still nothing. Just as I turned to leave, I heard the lock click. The door opened slowly. And standing there wasn't Macy. It was a woman. Mid-50s, auburn hair graying at the edges, sharp eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. She wore a cardigan over a silk blouse, like someone who just came from a parent-teacher conference. She looked me up and down like she was trying to place me in a police lineup. Then she said, flatly, "You must be Warren." I froze. Yeah? Who are you?" She crossed her arms and leaned against the doorframe like she owned the place. "I'm Diane, Macy's mother." I had never met her. Not once in 4 years. I assumed she was estranged or out of state, or simply uninterested. Macy always changed the subject when I brought her up. Said things like, "She's complicated," or "We don't talk much." But clearly, that wasn't true. I stepped back, stunned. "You live here?" She smirked. "No, but I paid for it." And just like that, everything twisted again. I asked if Macy was home. She shook her head. "She's at a spa retreat. Phone's off. Detoxing. She does that before big decisions." I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there, mouth open, the wind knocked out of me. I asked her why she was there, why she let me find all this out like this, why she never once contacted me even though I was supposedly marrying her daughter. Her answer? She asked me not to. Said you were fragile. Fragile. Like I was a vase she regretted buying. I told her everything. I laid it all out. The cheating, the account transfers, the backup files, the quote from her notepad. And she just nodded. Calmly. Like this was a script she'd already read. When I finished, she sighed and said, "Warren, Macy always had a talent for building exits before she burned the bridges." I told her once, it was better to climb out quietly than wait for the collapse. I assume you figured that out by now. I asked if she helped Macy plan all this. She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. She just handed me an envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, a typed agreement, and signed, with my name on it. The title? Mutual Separation Agreement. The terms were brutal. I got nothing but my personal belongings. No stake in the apartment, no claim to the shared account. A final line read, "Agreed upon amicably, to protect emotional well-being of both parties." I laughed. Actually laughed, right there on the porch. Then I tore the paper in half and dropped it at her feet. Diane didn't flinch. She just said, "You'll want to talk to your lawyer before that becomes final. Macy doesn't like surprises." I stared at her for a long time. Then I said, "Neither do I." And I walked away. But I wasn't done yet. Because if Macy was planning a clean exit, I was about to turn that exit into a maze she didn't expect. I didn't drive home after leaving the townhouse. I couldn't. My hands were too tight on the wheel. My chest was vibrating like something inside me was trying to scream its way out. I ended up in a supermarket parking lot 2 towns over, sitting in the car with the engine off and the windows rolled down, trying to decide if I was the idiot or if they were just monsters. I had spent 4 years building a life with a woman who choreographed my exit like a stage production. She planned her betrayal with the elegance of someone signing off an email. She didn't fall into infidelity. She constructed it. Foundation, blueprint, bricks. And now her mother had handed me a separation agreement like it was a damn receipt for an overcooked steak. It hit me in that parking lot, the thing that made everything click. Macy wasn't just preparing to leave me. She was rewriting our story, positioning herself as the calm, reasonable one, while I played the overwhelmed, emotional, clingy ex she tried to part ways with peacefully. She was even timing her retreat to vanish while her lawyer sent over the paperwork. If I didn't act, if I let it ride, I'd be the guy who got dumped, handed his keys, and replaced in the footnotes of her life. Just a soft man with no spine who got too attached. No, not this time. That night, I returned to the apartment. Our apartment, quietly. Macy still hadn't come back. And strangely, I hoped she wouldn't for a few more days. Because I had work to do, and I needed her out of the way to do it. First, I contacted a forensic accountant I found through Eli. Not a flashy guy, retired, slow voice, but sharp as a needle. I sent him everything I had, the transfers, the savings logs, the hidden account activity. He confirmed what I suspected. Macy had been draining our joint assets for months. Not all at once, but in carefully timed amounts, using holidays and bank holidays as cover. Then I called my lawyer. I didn't go with the one Macy knew we might use. I found someone outside our network, divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict separations and asset protection. When I showed him the documents and the recordings I'd quietly pulled from the shared iCloud, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You're going to want to hit first. Trust me." So I did. I filed. Not a mutual separation. An official divorce petition citing intentional financial misconduct and emotional fraud. I requested an emergency hearing to freeze all shared accounts. I listed the townhouse as an undisclosed asset, and I attached screenshots of the texts, the notepad, the photo of Brandon's jacket on our couch. It was brutal, and it felt terrifying, because I'm not that guy. I'm the one who always avoids conflict, who says sorry first, who tries to keep the peace even when I'm quietly bleeding inside. I'm the one who folds to avoid a fight. But she counted on that. Macy built her escape plan around the belief that I'd just go limp. And now, I was becoming the one thing she never anticipated. A man who didn't wait to be discarded. 3 days later, she returned. I knew the moment I heard her key in the lock. I was sitting on the couch, sipping cold tea, papers stacked beside me, laptop open to my lawyer's last email. I didn't greet her. I didn't move. She walked in wearing new sunglasses and that expensive scarf she always said was too loud for normal days. She paused when she saw me. "Hey, I didn't expect you to be here." I looked at her. Really looked. She didn't look guilty or scared. She looked like someone trying to remain in character. I slid the envelope across the coffee table. "What's this?" she asked, almost annoyed. "You tell me," I said. "You're the one who wrote the first version." She pulled the papers from the envelope and flipped through them. Her lips twitched. Her eyes narrowed. "You filed first." "Yeah, I'm fragile, not stupid." Her hand trembled slightly. Just enough for me to notice. I was going to handle this peacefully, Warren. Peaceful doesn't include siphoning funds and writing scripts about how to break my spine without getting your hands dirty. She opened her mouth, closed it, sat down. Suddenly, she looked smaller. Like the mask had slipped, just slightly. "You don't have to do this," she said, voice soft. "We can still talk." I stared at her for a long time. Then I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and said, "You said you wanted to be alone. I'm just making it official." She sat back like I'd slapped her. And then, for the first time in 4 years, Macy was silent. Not because she was calculating. Not because she was waiting to strike. But because, finally, she knew I wasn't waiting for her anymore. And the look on her face? It wasn't anger. It was fear. She didn't say a word after that. Not that night. Not when she saw the frozen accounts, the filed petition, or the documentation her lawyer quietly handed over 2 days later. Evidence she never expected me to find, much less use. She tried to recover control, of course. That was always her nature. In the week that followed, Macy sent me a handful of messages. All cold, carefully worded. None with the apology I foolishly thought I might hear one day. Instead, she tried to pivot. First it was sympathy, then guilt, then subtle threats. But the tone changed quickly once her lawyer saw what I'd collected, the records, the townhouse address, the notarized list of discrepancies in our shared finances. And that one screenshot. The one where she told Brandon, "Warren's a marshmallow. He'll roll over if I act heartbroken." No judge wants to hear that line. Within 10 days, the emergency hearing ruled in my favor. The apartment stayed with me. The remaining shared funds were split equitably, my definition of equitable this time. Her request to keep the townhouse off the books? Denied. Brandon vanished after that. I never heard his name again. I wish I could say the process didn't leave scars. It did. There were nights I stared at the ceiling wondering how I didn't see it sooner, or if I was ever really loved at all. I had to dig myself out of shame, self-doubt, and years of swallowing my own voice to avoid conflict. But in that silence, something surprising started to grow. Clarity, peace, strength. After the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the apartment anyway, not because I had to, but because I needed to let that version of me go. The Warren who lived there, the man who ignored his gut, who believed words over patterns, who accepted space as code for abandonment, that Warren deserved rest. I got a smaller place in a quieter neighborhood. Simple, modest, but it was mine, every inch of it. No shared closets full of lies. No candles hiding tension. Just a bed, a desk, and the hum of my own quiet, honest life. Eli helped me paint the walls. My mom sent a new coffee maker. My coworker Cheryl from IT brought me a plant named Leonard that I've somehow kept alive for 5 months. Every Friday, I go to the same cafe, order a ridiculous $7 pastry, and smile at the fact that no one is lying to me over breakfast. And yeah, there was someone new, eventually. Her name's Harper. I met her at a library event, of all places. She wore mismatched socks and interrupted the guest speaker twice to correct misquotes from Hemingway. At first, I thought she was chaos in sneakers. But then she asked how my week was going and she listened. Really listened. We're not rushing anything. I'm not trying to build something out of fear or grief this time. I told her everything on the third date. All the ugliness. All the cracks. She didn't flinch. She said, "Sounds like you were loyal to the wrong person. Doesn't mean you're broken." And for the first time in a very long time, I believed it. So no, this isn't a tragedy. It's not even really about revenge. It's a story about someone who finally stopped waiting to be chosen and started choosing himself. She said she wanted to be alone that night. And now, so do I. But this time, it's by choice. And it's peaceful.